Sorry, this just broke. So apologies.
Someone has yelled at Trump again?
No. Chief Justice Roberts pauses lifting of Title 42, keeping migrant policy in place for now. Listen, what I think everyone fails to understand is that these people aren't just gonna go away. They're fleeing their countries for various reasons. And by the way, from all over the world, right? That ABC News report had migrants trying to come in from Cuba, for instance, from Venezuela, all over the place. They're trying to seek asylum. Just kicking the can down the road isn't gonna solve the problem. But really, look, Chief Justice Roberts doing this is one thing. The real problem here is the ineffective and incompetent nature of Congress. The lack of comprehensive immigration reform, the lack of policy necessary to deal with this issue in a way that it needs to be dealt with, providing the resources necessary, the judges necessary to process individuals and determine whether or not their asylum claims are legitimate. It's a failure all around. This is a failed state. And I think this migration story is a perfect example of it.
Okay, my favorite part of the story now that we've got this breaking news, is the concern that all conservatives in general have, but specifically the conservatives on the Supreme Court, about COVID. Really? Really? Because Title 42 is supposed to be about, hey, we're so worried about COVID, we don't want immigrants seeking asylum to spread the disease here. And that's why, of course, as they gave this decision, the 6 conservatives on the Supreme Court were wearing masks and had booster shots all over them, right? Look, I don't know if they got vaccinated, whatever they did, their Supreme Court justice, they probably protected themselves, right? But overall, the right wing now pretending they care about COVID is nothing short of hilarious. There's the real world where there's real issues and things that have to be sorted out. And this incredibly fake world that we live in through media, where everything is distorted, simplified, like dumbed down, and completely incorrect, presented in incorrect ways, right? Right wingers are like, oh, of course we're concerned about COVID now, that's why we don't want those immigrants coming in, as if they didn't say it a second ago. And then we have nonsense debates about what a border is and whether politicians should go look at the border. That's my favorite one.
I know.
Oh, I looked at the border, so I'm an expert. Hey, Biden did not look at the border, which does not actually, it's not an actual line in the sand. So he is not an expert. That means he doesn't care about this issue. No, he doesn't care about this issue because he didn't prepare for the end of Title 42.
That's exactly right.
Roughly 2,500 migrants have crossed into El Paso every day this week, pushing the state to the brink. And that's before Title 42 is set to expire, when the Department of Homeland Security predicts the numbers along the southern border will swell to 18,000 a day.
That was Martha Raddatz over at ABC, and there is, in fact, a crisis at the border with a massive influx of migrants seeking asylum. Now, I want to be clear that there is a big difference between a group of migrants, many of them looking to claim asylum, versus what right-wing politicians, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott, have been claiming, that this is some sort of violent invasion into the United States. We obviously have a process in place to process individuals seeking asylum at our southern border, and that's what this story is really about. But there is failure all around, and it has now led to the mayor of El Paso, Oscar Leeser, declaring a state of emergency in order to get the federal government to allocate the necessary resources to take care of these individuals as they come to the border seeking asylum. Temperatures are incredibly cold at night. They have run out of shelter and food to provide the asylum seekers, and that is why the El Paso mayor has declared a state of emergency. And keep in mind, the Title 42 information that you got in that video is true. This week, Title 42 will expire on Wednesday, and the current influx of migrants is expected to increase further as a result of that. And so, when I say failure all around, I really do mean failure all around. Long time failure by Congress, failing to pass any type of comprehensive immigration reform. Failure by the Biden administration to be prepared for this moment, knowing full well that Title 42, which Trump had implemented, citing COVID as the reason to expel migrants at the border, Biden knew this was gonna happen, so he should have been prepared. There should have been something in place. And there is also some criticism toward the mayor of El Paso because they wanted him to declare this emergency earlier to secure the resources necessary to take care of the individuals coming to the border. Now, Leeser said the mass migration of people seeking asylum Wednesday is expected to be incredible. He added that federal estimates provided to him indicate that the number of migrants crossing the border could go from 2,500 per day to potentially 6,000 per day. And I want to also note, I mean, in that ABC video, they mentioned 18,000 a day. Everyone's throwing around numbers. Keep in mind that these are estimates, but it would be a lie to say that you don't have thousands of people coming to the border every day. That is in fact happening. And I think this is honestly the result of Title 42, because the asylum seekers were gonna seek asylum no matter what. So think of this as a massive backlog of people seeking asylum. Now knowing that Title 42 will expire, they're gonna come at the border at once, seeking to claim asylum, and of course they're supposed to be processed. We don't have the resources in place as we speak.
It seems like there are two different issues here, and not only that, but there are two issues that conflict and then hence cause mass confusion, and which no one ever clarifies except us. We're gonna try to do it right here. Number one is the backlog, but when the backlog is released, it'll seem like there's all these new immigrants that popped up overnight. Oh my God, it's a tsunami, the caravan finally arrived, okay, but tons of them, right? But then there's a second issue is, wait, has the rate of immigration gone up or not gone up? And it appears that it has not gone up. So when you hear every politician and every media figure flip out over like an influx of immigrants, they make it appear that the rate of immigration has gone skyrocketing. And all of a sudden, everybody's pouring in from Honduras and Guatemala and even Argentina, and even though they're ecstatic today generally, okay? But it doesn't appear to be the case.
No, so understand that during the coronavirus pandemic, what Trump did actually worked for the time that it was implemented. So Title 42 prevented most asylum seekers from entering the country. It allowed for Border Patrol to do automatic expulsions of people seeking asylum. And the Trump administration claimed, well, we can't have migration because of this pandemic. It's gonna put us in a bad position. We wanna make sure that we're not spreading the virus from one country to another. Okay, I mean, that's what he cited, but we knew that he wanted to stop the flow of migration anyway, right? Biden continued that policy. And now, because of a federal ruling on it, it is set to expire. You can't claim that you need Title 42 when you yourself, as president of the United States, has stated explicitly that the coronavirus pandemic is over. Now, obviously, there's a big debate about that. I don't want to get off on a tangent on that coronavirus issue. Let's focus on the migration situation. Now, at the same time, Biden knew this was coming, okay? There was a federal judge early on in his tenure who said to him, listen, you can't automatically expel unaccompanied minors, for instance, seeking asylum at the border. You need to process them, you can't just turn them away. So during the Biden administration, because of that federal judge's ruling, the flow of migration started to trickle in a little bit. But for the most part, most people seeking asylum were prevented from coming into the country. Now, one other way that you can prove that is by the labor market. There has been an incredibly tight labor market because of the lack of flow of migration into the country, which you'll hear about in reports as well. But overall, these were people who were gonna seek asylum anyway. And now that Title 42 is about to expire, they're planning on coming to the border. They've been coming to the border to get processed.
Yeah, but let me clarify one more time. So if you guys say, or if anybody says, as we are saying here, hey, Biden should have been better prepared. And one of the advantages of Biden over Trump was supposed to be competence. And you know what? I give him a mid rating on competence. Sometimes I look at it and go, well, that is way better than Trump would have done. And we've talked about that on air. But remember, it's a low bar. So when he clears that bar, it's not like that means he's the most competent person in the world. There's a lot of things they didn't anticipate at all. It's kind of stunning how they didn't anticipate it. And this appears to be one of them. Guys, what are you waiting for? I mean, this same thing that happened with Dobbs, right? They knew Roe was going to get overturned. They waited and waited, and the last second they seemed surprised, and they were totally unprepared. So this is another one of those examples. So that's a problem for Biden. But I'm worried that people are then going to take it, and they're doing it as we speak, not just the right wing, but also mainstream media, and pretend that there's a giant rise in immigration. We have to pass new laws against immigrants because there's a new wave of them. No, it's an old wave of them in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old wave that were prevented from coming into the country to begin with because of Title 42. In addition to people who would have, who would seek asylum anyway, right? So the regular flow of migration and the, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, this is the easiest way for me to understand it, the backlog of asylum seekers throughout the pandemic. In fact, why don't we go to this next video, because this gives you a sense of how many migrants were prevented from coming into the country as a result of Title 42. Watch.
We joined Governor Greg Abbott of Texas as he surveyed the border this week, one of the Republican governors fighting to keep Title 42 in place. That Trump policy implemented at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, which allows the US government to immediately expel most migrants as a public health risk. Since March of 2020, it's been used nearly 2.5 million times.
So it's been used 2.5 million times. Those 2.5 million people don't just turn around and say, okay, I guess there's no way we're gonna get in. No, they come back seeking asylum once they know that Title 42 is gonna be lifted. Now, there's another part of this that I think is important. While a federal judge has struck down Title 42, and so it is set to expire, Donald Trump's Remain in Mexico plan was upheld by a federal judge. So I'm curious to see how that plays out, whether the Biden administration will put the onus on Mexico to essentially shelter and take care of these asylum seekers as they get processed by judges. Because remember, if you have a legitimate asylum claim and a judge deems it legitimate, you will be allowed into the country. But there are a lot of people to process, and the problem is we don't have the resources in place to do so in a timely manner.
Here we are having I hope, a fairly intelligent conversation about the nuances of this policy. Do you see that anywhere else? What I see is, there's no borders left. There are borders, there aren't borders. What does that even mean? Of course there are borders, right?
By the way, Henry Cuellar, a Democratic congressman from Texas, made that accusation against Joe Biden. Hey, you're a member of Congress, okay? Joe Biden can't deal with this issue unilaterally. You actually need Congress to pass comprehensive immigration reform. How about you get on that? And by the way, I'm not taking blame off of Biden at all. There's failure from the Biden administration, 100%. I definitely agree with that critique. But the same goes for Congress. They keep kicking the can down the road, They don't want to actually pass legislation to deal with this, and that's the reason why we're dealing with this issue today. And it is incredibly cruel to have literally, I mean, when you think about how many people were immediately rejected at the border since the beginning of Title 42, literally millions of migrants who have gone through torture, hell to get to the border. We're just giving them the middle finger and telling them maybe it'll expire at some point. We don't take COVID seriously in this country. The president of the United States has said that the pandemic is effectively over, but we're still gonna cite Title 42 and the coronavirus pandemic for rejecting you.
Yeah, so we end on this ironic note where two well-known ass kickers come out against can kicking. Do not kick the can down the road.
No, you got to deal with it
now, okay?
Got to deal with it.
Anti-can kicking.
Yes.
Pro-ass kicking. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.